Very good morning to you all again. Charles here of FRGNT Daily Chart Analysis, Wednesday the 12th November 2025, 8:43 Milano, 7:43 UK, still pre-London Open, and I have finished my last and final chart in terms of analysis regarding how price action is currently. Here we are, Euro US dollar. So as per usual, bottom right hand corner, there we shall find that weekly time frame chart. And as always, simply just to find any points of interest of which we can expect price to find a rejection from. Once that is then found, we superimpose them areas on the lower time frames, look in terms of aligning those up with order blocks, points of interest, breaks of structure, to give us that confluence to trade with confidence. So what do we have on the daily, or on the weekly time frame? Well, the weekly 50 MA is all the way to the rear at the bottom of the chart. However, nevertheless, what we can say, if we zoom it out in the entirety, price is trending quite nicely above that weekly 50 MA. And it's respecting it. However, it's not really playing too much in terms of the analysis, in all honesty. So what I've done, I've marked some wick imbalances to the highs in terms of previous weekly candles. I've also marked on that PWH, previous weekly high and previous weekly lows, and in and around those areas, let's see what it looks like on the daily time frame. So middle chart now, daily time frame, what can we see and what can we say? Well, price is currently trending up towards that previous weekly high. It already got there yesterday, giving us a wick, producing and providing us with a previous daily high, which I hope price does tap into before then finding some rejection from the short in line with the daily 50 EMA. So as you can see, as prices come into that daily 50 EMA, it's rejected it. Prices come into that 50 EMA, rejected it. Prices coming up in towards that daily 50 EMA. Can you guess what I'm expecting? Continued rejection. We just use the facts, build the story with the facts, and create that bias. As well as that, what we can say as well, we will be indeed trending in line with lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, expecting a lower low, trending or trading in line with the higher time frame structure, which is always a good position to be on. So hopefully, as I say, this current daily candle pushes up on those lower time frames up in towards that previous daily high. Hopefully it even taps into that 4-hour order block and whatever is in that area refined before a turnaround lower time break of structure short from that area. Now, where are we at the moment? So in terms of high probable setup, this is most certainly the short position is what I'm looking for. However, in the immediacy as an intraday trader, am I able to take a long position? Perhaps. Let's go over to the 4-hour time frame to see where that aligns. So what we can see here is price tapped in previously into that previous daily low, 4-hour order block before giving us that move. So let's have a look at structure in the immediacy, just to have a look at internal plays. So price was making those lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. There is a break of internal structure creating a potential higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, back into that areas which we are forecasting a potential rejection from before making that higher high, which then, as we are fully aware of on the higher time frames, this is indeed a lower high area before the drop. So it's very important to be mindful always of that higher time frame structure. We will not be taking long positions from in and around that daily 50 EMA area. However, we are more than happy to take a long position in towards it, closing out, switching our bias, and then moving towards shorts. So what else is aligning for us in terms of long position? Well, we've marked on that 4-hour wick imbalance just to see if we can start to build some confluence up. We've got previous daily lows coming into play. In fact, I should move that there. Coming into play in regards to the wick imbalance. Let's just delete the wick imbalance. In fact, let's delete the wick 4-hour wick imbalance and simply replace that there with a previous daily low. So expecting price to dip into that 4-hour EMA. Let's have a look to see how that EMA is performing. Price has come into it, rejected it with wicks to the low. Price come into it, rejected it with wicks. Price, again, let's use the fact we expect price to come into it, wick potentially on the lower time frames. So on the lower time frames it will look something like this. However, on the 4-hour time frame it will simply be a wick once it's printed, and we can expect that breaker structure pull back into imbalance before looking to go long. So that's what I'm forecasting based on the 4-hour time frame. In terms of the 1-hour top left hand corner now, we cannot really refine that anymore. In terms of looking for order blocks, there are none in and around this area. So I'm forced to go down to the next time frame, which for me is the 15-minute time frame. The majority of the time that is my execution time frame. Where is price action gone? There it is. So what am I looking for? So we've got that 15-minute order block just sat right there. All other 15-minute order blocks have been mitigated, including this area here, which price made its move off. So if I add another in like so, that will give us some confidence, and also the confluence is telling us that, well, price has already come into this area and it's pushed off, meaning that there's no imbalance left. Price shouldn't really be looking to return, only if there are lower time frame imbalances, which there more than likely are. However, on that 15-minute time frame, if we take it for what it is, there is always a reason to lose. There are imbalances in the masses below that we cannot cover always. So we're going to hang our hat on this 15-minute order block for now. So we know we're in around that area, the 4-hour 50 EMA that we expect price to wick into. So this 4-hour candle, if I were to illustrate it to the best of my abilities, we expect that 4-hour candle to come in, give us our break of structure by pushing up, give us our re-entry by pushing back down, closing then bullish, pushing us into profits, and then just to finish the illustration of how the 4-hour candle will look, a wick like so, rejecting that 4-hour 50 EMA, bringing us into at least break even. Thank you very much for listening. That's my take on Euro US dollar. In fact, before I disappear, let's have a look at the potential short position. We already know it's a higher probable area in terms of that daily 50 MA, previous daily high, all working in favor of the short. In particular, that daily 50 MA, as I've just mentioned, as price is respecting it beautifully. So once the price comes in, I'll be looking for those lower time frame breaks or structure in the immediacy, as there is no 15-minute order block that I would like to use from so far back. I'm going to wait for structure to create itself, since there is going to be a tremendous range from here down to potential rejection of that 4-hour EMA. So knowing that on EU I can manipulate at least a 10 to 15 pip stop loss, knowing that the range is 60 pips, I can quite easily get a 1 to 3 return on my investment, so long as I enter with accuracy, which I endeavor to do. So there's no need to be in that position first. If the setup aligns, I shall take it. While we're there, let's have another quick look at the other pairs just to complete the roundup for the day. So that's Euro US dollar. EG, let's see if I can remember the breakdown just by looking at the chart itself. Well, what can we see? We're in and around, well, EG, we know we're in that weekly order block up into those previous weekly highs. Hopefully we can get a tap into that area before a roll short down to that daily 50 EMA at the very least, using the 4-hour 50 EMA as management. As you can see, price is currently trending above that 50 EMA, expecting a rejection. In terms of structure on that 4-hour time frame, well, to be honest, for me, structure is irrelevant since we are in that weekly time frame order block, by which long positions are all but off the table, to be quite honest, as a result of my overwhelming bias of going short. GU, let's have a look at GU. Weekly time frame. Current weekly candle is rejecting that weekly 50 MA. I imagine we are looking for continued weakness from that area. With that said, just underneath we have previous daily highs to be filled. There is a 4-hour order block in and around this area as well that is yet to be mitigated. So that aligns nice with the fact that 50 EMA will come to be used to support that short previous daily highs as well. As mentioned, refined, we can see that 1-hour order block in and around that area, and then 15-minute order block is yet to be determined. Above that, I can see a 15-minute order block in and around the area of that weekly 50 EMA. However, it looks as if that 4-hour order block has already been mitigated. Let's have a look at structure just now to see how we are going. So on the daily time frame, overwhelmingly bearish, lower lows, potential lower high for that lower low into that previous weekly low before looking for the rejection up towards that daily 50 EMA. Let's have a look at AU whilst we are there. Yep, AU range bound at this time, so I'm looking for a break of structure, pull back to imbalance before looking to go short. However, my higher probable setup, I do believe, would be best to take it from a little bit higher in terms of previous weekly highs, which will align nicely with that 4-hour order block for us to then take a higher probable short based on range. So if we are going to take the short position today from current price action area, our range is only 17 pips towards that 4-hour 50 EMA. Therefore, we're going to have to manage that quite aggressively, albeit our targets are down at these lows. We have to be mindful of the fact that on that 4-hour time frame, price is respecting it, and potentially, dependent on how you are seeing the market, dependent on how the market sees itself, we are lower lows, lower highs, potential lower low, but this certainly is a break of structure from there. So potentially we're in a higher high area. Price is searching for that higher low before that higher high continuation. However, we shall see how that plays, and then just finally back full circle to EU, hoping that EU comes back down to retest that 4-hour 50 MA 15-minute order block in and around that area. Previous daily lows, potentially wick into there, and before we are to look to take long positions. But with that said, looking at that weekly time frame, we can see that our highest probable setup will come from shorting from that daily 50 EMA and longing from those previous weekly lows, which we already have set down there. A daily order block refined within that area is a 4-hour order block, and simply waiting for price to come in and around that area. Refined also 1 hour, and I don't believe I would have been so proactive. I have. There's also a 15-minute order block in that area and Asia to be filled. So we are more than ready for every alternative on the majority of pairs. So thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate your support in all channels across the platforms. That's 5 to 9 here in Milan, and also that's 5 to 8 UK time pre-London Open. All the best in your trading, I should say. And again, thank you very much for joining me and your attention. Take care. Best, Charles.